The story begins with Han Woo-jin, a 28-year-old man stepping out of a private jet, where a butler greeted him immediately and guided him toward a Rolls-Royce. "Welcome back to Korea, young master," the butler said. Woo-jin gave a faint smile and got into the car. "It's been 6 years since I left Korea," he murmured to himself as he leaned his head back and closed his eyes, allowing the memories to resurface. It was evening. Woo-jin was running through the city streets in a suit, holding a small box in one hand and a bouquet of flowers in the other. Despite being out of breath, he couldn't hide his excitement. Today is Yoon Se-yoon's birthday. It's the perfect day to propose. We're graduating in 2 months anyway. Yoon Se-yoon had been his girlfriend for 5 years. She came from a powerful conglomerate family, while he was from a middle-class background. They met in the university library when he helped her with her studies, and that simple encounter slowly grew into love. Woo-jin had earned his place in one of Korea's most prestigious universities through a scholarship, a place usually reserved for the rich and influential. "This traffic is terrible. I'll be late at this rate," he muttered, glancing at his already messy suit before shaking his head. "It doesn't matter." And so he ran. He finally arrived at a luxurious hotel, stopping briefly at the entrance to catch his breath before heading inside. Taking the elevator, he reached the event hall where the birthday party was being held. After confirming his name, the staff opened the doors for him, and in that instant, everything stopped. The flowers slipped from his hand and fell to the ground as his eyes froze on the scene in front of him. Yoon Se-yoon was kissing another man, Kang Sung-hyun. Around them, the guests were smiling, clapping, celebrating the moment as if it were something natural, something right. Then Kang Sung-hyun, a member of the richest family in Korea, took the microphone and spoke confidently. "I'd like to take this moment to congratulate Yoon Se-yoon on her 21st birthday and thank her for the wonderful 4 months we've shared together." 4 months. The words echoed in Woo-jin's mind. Se-yoon turned, overjoyed and ready to speak, but the moment her eyes met his, her expression froze. Her lips parted, yet no words came out. Woo-jin stood there like a statue, his mind blank and his chest heavy. She had been the one person who accepted him, despite the difference in their worlds. "Se-yoon, what's wrong?" her friend whispered, pulling her back to reality. She quickly composed herself, gave a short and rushed speech, then hurried out of the hotel. She found him in the elevator and followed him all the way to the hotel parking lot, where she grabbed his hand and turned him around. But the moment she saw his face, she froze. There was no anger, no tears, just emptiness. Woo-jin spoke first, his voice calm, almost unnaturally so. "Leo warned me 3 times this month." Her heart skipped. "He said he saw you with him at karaoke, at the pool, even at a bar." He paused slightly before adding, "He even said you slept together." She stood there, stunned, realizing that all the excuses she had prepared were now meaningless. "You weren't there," she said quickly. "I felt lonely, but I still love you. We can get through this. 5 years isn't something you throw away." She stepped closer, her voice softening. "Don't ruin everything over a small mistake." A small mistake? That was all he heard. Woo-jin wanted to shout, to ask her why, to tell her everything, how hard he had been working, how he endured everything for their future, for a life where he could stand beside her without shame. But the words never came out. Instead, he took a slow breath. "A small mistake?" he repeated quietly, then nodded slightly. "You're right." For a brief moment, her eyes lit up, but that hope shattered almost instantly. "I made a mistake too." Slowly, he removed the necklace she had given him and pulled it off, holding it out toward her. "From today on, we're strangers," he said, his voice steady and cold. "You're free to live the life you want, with whoever you want." She tried to speak, but he had already turned away and walked off without looking back. "Sir," the butler's voice pulled him out of his thoughts as the car door opened. Han Woo-jin paused for a brief moment before stepping out. Han Woo-jin got out of the car and lifted his gaze toward the massive building standing before him. Its glass exterior reflected the sky, towering over everything around it. For a brief moment, he simply stared at it in silence. "It's been 6 years," he said quietly. "Back then, I was nobody. And now?" His eyes hardened slightly. "This building is a branch of my company." A faint, cold smile appeared on his lips. "Ensung Group, get ready. I'm back." 6 years ago, Woo-jin had created a program unlike anything the world had seen before. It was a revolutionary system designed for cars, capable of projecting information directly onto the windshield. It could reduce sunlight glare, soften the blinding lights of other vehicles at night, and display essential driving data seamlessly. Navigation appeared directly on the road ahead, like a game interface, guiding the driver in real time. It wasn't just innovation, it was a new way of driving. Confident in his creation, he brought the system to Ensung Group, hoping to secure an investment and see it implemented in their vehicles. But instead of recognition, he was met with cold rejection. They mocked him, calling his idea outdated and useless, insisting that self-driving cars were the future and that his technology had no place in it.
What he didn't know at the time was that Kang Sung-hyun was behind that decision. Not long after, they even attempted to steal his idea. Fortunately, Woo Jin had already secured the copyrights, leaving them with nothing. But that wasn't the end of it. Yoon So-in's father, who had always opposed their relationship, joined forces with Kang Sung-hyun. Using their influence, they made sure no company would invest in Woo Jin. Even finding a normal job became nearly impossible. Day by day, his situation worsened until he could barely afford food. With no options left, he used what remained of his savings and left the country for the United States. That decision changed everything. In the US, he met Kang Jin-na, a Korean woman, and by chance, the cousin of Kang Sung-hyun. Unlike him, she saw the value in Woo Jin's work. Using her connections in California, she helped him secure a $10 million investment from Silicon Valley. With that, Woo Jin built his company from the ground up. He partnered with major car manufacturers like Ford and GMC, integrating his system into their vehicles. Within just 2 years, his technology became an essential feature in cars around the world. The company's value skyrocketed, surpassing $1 billion. At its peak, Woo Jin sold 95% of his shares, earning $1.3 billion. But he didn't stop there. He used that money to create an investment company, putting his wealth into startups with high potential, major corporations, and even cryptocurrency. Over the next 4 years, his net worth exceeded $4 billion, and his company held shares in more than 800 enterprises, including some of the biggest companies in the world. 1 year ago, he returned to Korea, not publicly, but strategically. He opened a branch of his company, quietly entering the Korean market and claiming his share of it. And now, he was finally here. As he walked into the building, the atmosphere shifted immediately. Employees straightened, conversations stopped. At the entrance, he was greeted by the branch manager, Kim Min-ji. She guided him to the meeting room where the executives were already waiting. As he took his seat, they began presenting the company's performance over the past year in the Korean market. After finishing his visit to the branch, Han Woo Jin took out his phone. The moment he unlocked it, a call came in. Kang Jin-na. He answered, and her cheerful voice came through immediately. "Hello, Woo Jin. I heard you're in Korea." He let out a small breath and replied, "Yes, that's true. And I won't even ask how you know." She laughed lightly. "Of course you won't. So, where are you now?" "I was just about to buy a house," he began, but she cut him off. "Perfect. I know the best real estate agencies in Seoul. I'll help you." He smiled faintly. "I was actually going to ask if you could come." She replied, "Then come pick me up. I'm at my office." He paused for a second. "I don't even have a car yet. I was planning to buy one too." She didn't hesitate. "Then I'll come get you instead. Where are you?" "At LKR Investments branch," he answered. "Stay there. I'll be there soon," she said before hanging up. Not long after, the two of them were driving through the city in her red Ferrari, heading toward a high-end real estate agency. Inside, they walked toward the display models, studying different villa layouts and locations. As they were looking, one of the employees whispered to his colleague, loud enough to be heard, "Another guy trying to impress his girlfriend. I'm getting tired of this." Then he stepped forward and addressed Woo Jin with clear disrespect. "Those villas over there are very expensive. You might want to check the cheaper options on this side." His colleague smirked, but a third employee frowned and spoke up. "Why are you acting like this? Everyone who walks in here is a potential client." The first one shrugged. "Because this is the 8th time this week, and look at his clothes. Do you really think he can afford a villa?" Hearing that, Woo Jin simply smiled. 6 years have passed, and people here haven't changed at all. Kang Jin-na glanced at him. "Don't take them seriously. They don't know who we are." Woo Jin's expression remained calm. "Then maybe it's time they learn. I stopped tolerating disrespect 6 years ago." He stepped forward and calmly asked to see the manager. Then, without raising his voice, he added, "I want the villa in Gangnam, the one with the river view." The atmosphere changed instantly. The employees froze, and one of them rushed to call the manager, while another hurried to prepare paperwork. But Woo Jin stopped them. "None of you will handle my purchase. I'll wait for the manager." A few moments later, the manager arrived. The moment he saw Kang Jin-na, his expression changed completely, and he greeted Woo Jin with respect. "I heard you're interested in the Gangnam villa. It's priced at 10 billion won. Woo Jin nodded without hesitation. "No problem. I'll take it. Prepare the paperwork quickly. I don't have much time. And you might want to train your staff better. The service here is below standard. I've seen busier fast food places with better treatment." The manager's face stiffened with embarrassment and anger. Behind him, the employees who had mocked Woo Jin were already trembling. One of them spoke in a shaky voice. "I have loans to pay. I can't afford to lose this job." But the manager, furious, immediately ordered their contracts to be terminated. Then he turned back, forcing a polite tone. "You can pay 20% now and—" Woo Jin calmly took out his card, a black American Express. "I'll pay the full amount now." Silence fell over the room. The manager quickly completed the process and handed him a VIP card. With this, you'll receive premium service at all our branches nationwide. By tomorrow, we'll send the ownership documents and the keys to you." He bowed deeply. Later, at a car dealership, Kang Jin-na looked excited. "You should get a Ferrari, it suits you." But Wu Jin's attention was elsewhere. His eyes rested on a Porsche 911. He walked toward it, studied it for a moment, then said simply, "I'll take this one." Jin-na pouted slightly. "I wanted our cars to match." Wu Jin smiled faintly at her reaction. As they walked out, she suddenly remembered something. "By the way, there's an annual gathering coming up. It's for the young and third generation of wealthy families in Korea. They use it to build connections and strengthen relationships. You should come." Wu Jin paused for a moment, thinking. Third generation. A quiet thought crossed his mind. They'll be there too. A subtle smile appeared on his lips. "Yeah, why not? I need to integrate into that circle anyway." Jin-na nodded. "I'll send you the invitation and the location." But before she could continue, Wu Jin interrupted her. "I'm hungry. Let's go eat somewhere." He looked ahead, a hint of nostalgia in his eyes. "I've missed Korean food."
On the night of the social gathering, Han Woo-jin arrived in his Porsche, dressed in a fitted black suit. He was slightly late due to traffic, but as he stepped out and entered the hall, his presence immediately drew attention. Conversations slowed, and many eyes turned toward him. Among them, Yoon Se-on. The moment she saw him, she froze. He was the last person she ever expected to see here. No way, she thought. What is he doing here? 6 years. He had disappeared without a trace. Her mind drifted back to that day, the moment he handed her the necklace and walked away. She had tried to call him again and again, but his phone was always out of reach. That night she lay on her bed crying, her phone clutched in her hands. The next morning she went to his place, only to find that he was gone. "Se-on, are you okay?" her friend asked, gently touching her shoulder. "Look at that new guy. He's really handsome." She snapped out of her thoughts. Ah, yes. But her eyes didn't leave him. He changed, she thought. He looks more mature, stronger, his style, even his presence. She hesitated. What happened to him all these years? Meanwhile, Wu Jin paused for a moment, calmly scanning the room. Then he spotted Kang Jin-na. A faint smile appeared on his face as he walked toward her, passing right by Yoon Se-on as if she didn't exist. She instinctively tried to speak, but no words came out. He didn't even glance at her. He stopped in front of Jin-na and greeted her warmly. She smiled and introduced him to the people around her. One by one, they turned their attention to him, surprised by his presence and the quiet confidence he carried. Not far away, Kang Sung-hyun sat casually on a sofa, surrounded by friends, laughing as usual. He had changed little. Now the vice chairman of Ensung Group, after his father won the inheritance battle against Kang Jin-na's father, he still lived the same carefree life, enjoying attention and luxury. Wu Jin's gaze settled on him. "So you're here," he thought. "Kang Sung-hyun, the time has come. You'll pay for everything you did." Around the room, whispers began to spread. "Who is he? I've never seen him before." Hearing that, Kang Jin-na stepped forward and introduced him properly. "This is Han Woo-jin, the creator of the startup Atlas and one of its shareholders." The reaction was immediate: surprise, curiosity, and quiet admiration. From a distance, Yoon Se-on watched everything, watching him smile, watching him stand beside another woman. Something inside her tightened. As the night went on, guests moved between art displays, soft classical music, and occasional K-pop performances. Conversations formed in small groups, laughter filled the room, and the atmosphere remained elegant. As tradition, the event concluded with a charity auction, where wealthy families competed to purchase a traditional Korean antique. Officially, it was for charity. Unofficially, it was a stage to display power and influence. At one point, Se-on noticed Wu Jin standing alone, holding a glass of wine as he observed a piece of art. Gathering her courage, she walked toward him. "Han Woo-jin, it's you, right?" For a brief second, his body tensed. Then he turned, a polite smile on his face. "And you are Miss Yoon Se-on from the Yoon family, correct?" Her expression shifted. The formality in his tone caught her off guard. "Where have you been all this time?" she asked. Before he could answer, Kang Jin-na approached. "Wu Jin, they're calling for us." He nodded, then looked back at Se-on. "Excuse me, Miss Yoon." And just like that, he left. Se-on stood there, her hands clenched slightly. Frustration and something deeper mixed inside her. Turning to her friend, she whispered, "Let's leave early tonight." But before they could move, the lights dimmed. The host stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The auction will begin." The item was presented, a white porcelain jar from the Joseon dynasty, known as a moon jar. The starting bid was 50 million won. 60 million, a young man called out, the second son of the Park family. 65 million, a woman followed, the granddaughter of the Cho family.
"72 million, Yoon Se-on added, her voice steady. 75 million, Kang Jin-na said calmly, representing her own company, already calculating its resale value. Then, 100 million. Kang Sung-hyun leaned back with a confident smirk. The reaction was immediate, but before the host could continue, 110 million. All eyes turned. Han Woo-jin. The jump was sudden, direct, almost like a challenge. Se-on's heart pounded. How, she thought, how does he have that money? Behind her, someone whispered, "You don't know him? He's been on Forbes for the last 2 years, the most successful self-made Koreal under 30. Her breath caught. She immediately took out her phone, searching his name. And then she saw it. The articles, the numbers, the success. Her breath caught. Scrolling further, she found his social media. Luxury trips, high-end events, a life she always dreamed of. Then one picture stopped her. Woo Jin and Kang Jin-na. In Paris, eating ice cream under the Eiffel Tower at sunset. Her chest tightened. That had been their dream, back when they were together. The host's voice pulled her back. Sold to Mr. Han Woo-jin for 210 million won. Applause filled the hall. Woo-jin remained calm, while across the room, Kang Sung-hyun's expression darkened. He was furious. His father had insisted he win the auction to maintain their family's image after securing control of Ensung Group. And yet, he had just been overshadowed by the one person he thought he had already destroyed.
A month later, Han Woo-jin sat in a meeting room with the branch manager and key executives of his company. On the table in front of him lay a detailed file about a small company with high potential, one they were preparing to acquire. The atmosphere was serious as they reviewed both public and confidential information. Woo-jin flipped through the pages calmly, his eyes scanning every detail, until one name caught his attention. He paused slightly. "Lee Min-soo," he murmured. A faint, almost knowing expression crossed his face. Interesting. He closed the file and leaned back. "We'll pass on this acquisition." The room fell silent. The branch manager looked stunned. "But sir, this company is very important. It would give us strong influence over distribution across the country. We've already announced our participation in the bid." Woo-jin remained calm. "We will still participate," he said, "but we won't win." Confusion spread across the room. His mind drifted back to years ago, a business trip to China where he had attended a negotiation about purchasing a company owned by 3 individuals. One of those names was Lee Min-soo. That deal had turned into a disaster. The company turned out to be a scam, and the group that bought it suffered massive legal and financial damage. Those 3 individuals were professional fraudsters. They specialized in acquiring struggling companies, manipulating their financial reports to make them appear profitable, and then selling them at inflated prices through quick bids. These people never sell healthy companies, Woo-jin thought. He looked up again, his expression firm. "I don't know what's wrong with this company yet, but something is off." He turned to the legal director. "Assign a team immediately. I want a full investigation, legal, financial, everything, and dig into this Lee Min-soo as well." His tone sharpened slightly. "I want all the information, at least 1 day before the bid." Over the past month, Woo-jin had also been quietly gathering information about Kang Sung-hyun. What he found was worse than expected. Publicly, Kang Sung-hyun was known as a GT race driver, someone who had won multiple awards and enjoyed a glamorous lifestyle. But behind that image, there was something darker. Reports of harassment, abuse of power, bribery, and manipulation surfaced one after another. Several women had been victims of him, some silenced by money, others by fear. One of them had taken her own life. Woo-jin managed to track down 4 victims or their families. Most refused to get involved, but one father agreed to meet him. The man had spent 5 years collecting evidence, quietly following Kang Sung-hyun's actions, waiting for a chance to expose him. When he handed everything over, Woo-jin realized how valuable it was. For the first time in a long while, a genuine sense of satisfaction crossed his mind. This would make things much easier. Elsewhere, at Yoon Group, Yoon Saw-in stepped out of a bank and walked slowly toward her car. Her expression was tired, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. The past weeks had not been easy. Despite everything, she continued working, preparing for the upcoming bid and attending a series of meetings with her acquisition team. Yoon Group, valued at nearly 6 trillion won, $6 billion, had around 700 billion won in liquid assets. But instead of using that capital directly, she had secured a loan of 150 billion won, $150 million, from the bank to strengthen their position for the bid. Every decision had to be precise, yet her mind wasn't fully there. At the same time, Kang Sung-hyun stood at a racing circuit surrounded by friends. The roar of engines filled the air as he showed off his brand new Lamborghini Huracan, clearly enjoying the attention. He was preparing for his next race, relaxed and confident as always, when his phone rang. It was his father. His expression shifted slightly as he answered. "You need to attend the bid in the coming days," his father said. "Gather information on the other groups. I want to know their financial capacity." Kang Sung-hyun smirked. "All right, understood." He hung up, his confidence unchanged. On the day of the bid, luxury cars lined up in front of a grand hotel, arriving one after another. Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, and high-end sedans filled the entrance as influential figures stepped out, each accompanied by their teams. Yoon Se-an arrived with a composed expression, followed closely by her staff. Moments later, Kang Sung-hyun stepped out of his Bentley with one of his men, carrying his usual confident attitude. Inside the bidding hall, the atmosphere was intense. Journalists, businessmen, and representatives from major groups filled the room, all gathered either to compete for the company or to observe the outcome. Kang Sung-hyun approached Yoon Se-an and greeted her casually, but she gave him no response. Still, she couldn't completely ignore him. Memories resurfaced against her will. Months after that birthday incident, their relationship had been made official, even making headlines as a potential alliance between Unsung Group and Yoon Group. At first, things seemed stable. She attended his races, appeared by his side, and maintained the image expected of her. But within a year, the truth revealed itself. His behavior with other women was constant. He cheated on her repeatedly, almost every week. Worse, she discovered something she could never forget. One of her own friends had been assaulted by him at one of his parties, leaving her mentally broken. And despite knowing everything, Se-an remained silent. Breaking the engagement would have consequences for her family's business, so she endured it, burying her resentment deeper with each passing day. At that moment, Han Woo-jin entered the hall with his team. His presence immediately drew attention. Kang Sung-hyun noticed him and walked straight toward him, lowering his voice. "You scum! How did you even get rich, and why are you everywhere I go?" Woo-jin looked at him calmly, then smirked. "Oh, Kang Sung-hyun from Unsung Group? This isn't a party, it's a business gathering. I think you walked into the wrong room." Kang Sung-hyun's expression tightened. "You think you can win her back? Yoon Se-an is my fiancé now." He leaned closer and whispered, "I've been playing with her like a toy, and I still am." For a brief second, Woo-jin went still. Then he smiled faintly. "I didn't know the great Kang Sung-hyun enjoys what others have already thrown away. You have quite a disgusting taste." Without waiting for a response, he brushed past him and continued walking. Behind him, Kang Sung-hyun stood frozen in rage. Everyone soon took their seats, and the bidding began at 120 billion won, $120 million, with increments of at least 10 billion. The offers quickly escalated. 130 billion, 140 billion, 150 billion. Yoon Group entered the competition. 170 billion. Woo-jin's group followed calmly. 180 billion. Another group joined. Se-an felt the pressure rising. Everyone wants this company, she thought. She raised her voice. 190 billion. One by one, weaker competitors started to drop out. Then Woo-jin spoke again. 210 billion. A wave of murmurs spread across the room. The price was climbing dangerously close to overvaluation. Se-an's hands tightened slightly. She couldn't tell if he truly wanted the company or if this was his way to hurt her. One of her team members leaned in. "We're approaching our limit, miss." Ignoring the warning, she raised the bid again. 220 billion. Without hesitation, Woo-jin responded. 250 billion. At that moment, Woo-jin recalled the file he had studied. Yoon Group needed this company more than anyone else. They couldn't afford to lose it, and he knew it. Slowly, he turned his head and looked directly at Se-an, a faint smirk on his lips. The message was clear. She fell right into it. 260 billion, she said quickly. Then, 350 billion, Woo-jin replied. The entire room fell into shock. Even the host hesitated for a moment. The price had already far exceeded the company's real value. Se-an felt the pressure closing in on her from all sides. Her team urged her to stop, warning her that this was no longer a rational decision. But her pride and her desire to win took control. 400 billion. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Woo-jin leaned back and let out a quiet laugh. "I withdraw." The host immediately regained composure. "Sold for 400 billion won to Yoon Group. Congratulations!" Applause filled the room. But Se-an didn't feel like she had won. At that moment, she understood. This was never just about acquiring the company. It was about the price, and she had just paid far more than she should have. A few days later, Han Woo-jin was at a high-end mall inside a luxurious watch boutique. The moment he entered, the employees immediately recognized him from the recent social gathering and welcomed him with exceptional politeness. The store manager himself came forward, personally presenting their finest collections and offering him their best service. Woo-jin calmly observed the watches on display before making his choice. "I'll take this one," he said, pointing at a Rolex priced at 16 million won, that is $16,000. Then he added, "And I want that model as well." The manager hesitated slightly. "Sir, that piece is currently unavailable. There's a waiting list. It usually takes around a year."
Wu Jin didn't react. He simply took out his phone and made a call to his assistant at the company headquarters. "Handle it," he explained briefly before hanging up. Only then did it become clear. His company held shares in Rolex. A few minutes later, the manager's phone rang. After a short conversation, his expression changed completely. He turned back to Wu Jin, still slightly stunned. "Sir, the watch will be delivered within 15 days. For a moment, he didn't know how to react. "How would you like to pay?" Wu Jin calmly took out his black card and paid the full amount without hesitation. Leaving the store, he walked toward his car. On the way, he took out his phone again and booked 2 VIP tickets for the upcoming national GT race, one for himself and one for Kang Jin-na. A short while later, he arrived at his house and found Jin-na already inside, focused on her work. He placed the watch box on the table and asked, "Are you done?" Without looking up, she replied, "Almost. I just need to organize the evidence properly. It has to be clear and impactful when it's displayed on the big screen at the race circuit." Wu Jin nodded slightly. "I'll handle the broadcast director side. I'll give them the files and make sure it's released during the closing ceremony." Jin-na finally looked up, a faint smile on her face. "I hope my cousin wins the race. The impact will be much bigger." Wu Jin looked at her for a moment, then smiled faintly. "You really care about your cousin, huh?"
The day of the race had become one of the biggest events in the country. For Ensung Group, it was especially important. Kang Sung-hyun was driving their cars in an official championship, turning every race into a massive advertisement. Each win or strong performance would directly boost the company's stock price. In the automotive industry, this endurance race, lasting 24 hours, was not just sport, but business power on display. The venue was packed, spectator zones were full, energy high, and betting had already started on drivers and manufacturers. In the VIP area, CEOs and chairmen from major automotive groups were gathered, observing closely, each one calculating future alliances and profits. Yoon So-in was also present, not out of choice, but out of obligation. As Kang Sung-hyun's fiancée, her presence was expected. Her father was there as well, hoping to maintain connections and open new opportunities among the most powerful figures in the industry. The race began, engines roaring across the circuit, excitement spreading through the crowd. But So-in's attention shifted when she noticed Han Woo-jin in the corridor leading toward the VIP section. Without thinking, she rushed toward him. "Woo-jin, please, talk to me." He tried to walk past her, but she stepped in front of him, blocking his path. He stopped, his expression calm but distant. "Miss Yoon, please move. People might misunderstand and think you're a cheater." So-in frowned. "I don't care." He gave a faint, almost empty smile. "Ah, I forgot. You're used to that now." Her expression broke slightly. "Woo-jin, please, you've changed so much. Why are you acting like this?" He narrowed his eyes. "You're crying, but all I see is water." "Even so," she raised her voice, trembling, "I still love you, you idiot." That word hung in the air. Woo-jin stopped completely. He took a slow breath, then spoke, colder than before. "Love?" He looked at her directly. "Do you even know what that means?" A silence followed. "The only person between us who has the right to say that word is me." Suddenly, his hand struck the wall beside her. His voice dropped lower, sharper. "You want to know why I act like this? Because I saw something in you that never existed. I gave you a place in my life that you were never capable of holding. I loved you, yes, but not anymore." His gaze hardened. "The moment you cheated, everything ended. So don't waste my time with fantasies from the past." He stepped back slightly. "Have a good life, Miss Yoon," and walked away. So-in collapsed to the floor, trembling, realizing for the first time that she had truly lost him. In the corridor corner, Kang Jin-na was waiting. She looked at Woo-jin as he approached. "Good," she said calmly. "You needed that closure." Then she pulled him into a brief hug. "Now focus. Go and get your revenge. No, our revenge." He nodded slowly. Regaining his focus, Woo-jin went straight to the broadcast control room to meet the director. Everything was already prepared. He handed over the flash drive and the watch box. "Release it during the ceremony, and if you lose your job because of this, come find me." The director hesitated, then nodded quickly. Later that day, Woo-jin returned to his company branch and immediately held a meeting with his team. Orders were clear: prepare liquidity, move fast, and act the moment markets open. The objective was simple: acquire as much Ensung Group stock as possible. The next day, during the ceremony, everything changed. Kang Jin-na released the evidence simultaneously to the police and media outside the circuit. Han Woo-jin watched from the VIP area as chaos slowly unfolded. On every screen, allegations spread: bribery, extortion, abuse of power, assault, corruption, cheating in competitions, and more. Kang Sung-hyun's world collapsed in real time. His father suffered a heart attack upon hearing the news. Panic spread through the VIP room. Within hours, the story became the top trend nationwide. Ensung Group's stock began to fall rapidly. The scandal didn't stop there. Yoon Group was also affected due to its direct connection through the engagement and some of the evidence.
The company they had recently acquired was already under financial pressure, and bank began demanding repayment. Their liquidity evaporated instantly. Inside Wu Jin's office, he and Jin Na calmly continued acquiring Ensung shares. Jin Na said quietly, "The group my father fought for is now in our hands." Wu Jin gave a faint smile. "They shouldn't have made my life impossible back then." His mind drifted briefly to the past, to the moment he realized every obstacle in his life had been orchestrated by Kang Sung-hyun and Yoon So-in's father. That was the day he made his decision to destroy them. The aftermath came quickly. Kang Sung-hyun was arrested and placed in custody awaiting trial. His father fell into a coma. Yoon So-in's father was also detained, his assets frozen under investigation, making Yoon Group's situation even worse. So-in herself was overwhelmed by media pressure, financial collapse, and police scrutiny. Eventually, she broke down completely under the weight of everything. By the end of it all, Han Woo-jin and Kang Jin-na had quietly secured 46% of Ensun Group, 30% held by Jin-na, 16% by Woo-jin. Together, they became the majority shareholders, controlling the company that once stood above them all.